This meeting by taking nominations for the chair of the Vergennes Union High School School Board.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have.
Oh, do we have?
Before we do that.
Sorry, I'm in a hurry. I
Would you
want to
like
get
to
this
call
up
for
on
any other
plate.
nominations?
Are there any other nominations? We have that one seconded. Hearing none, I move that we vote.
Hearing no other nominations.
I make the motion to close nominations and instruct the recorder to cast one ballot for the chair. Seconded by?
We got that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. I'm done.
You have to turn it over to the chairman.
And now, turn it over to Chairman Don. Joking.
Thank you. I'd like to open the floor for nominations for vice chair. Lori has been serving as our vice chair.
So moved.
Was that a nomination?
Yes, that was a nomination. I've spoken to the candidate, and she's agreed to serve one more year.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair?
Did I hear a motion for Lori?
Yes.
Did it get seconded?
No, nominations don't need to be seconded.
Yes, they do.
Really?
Then I will second
Okay.
that nomination.
Well, the motion has to be seconded.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. What's that wording again?
Blah, blah, blah,
Blah,
blah.
blah, blah. All in favor of Lori for vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Lori is our vice chair. I'd like to open the floor for nominations for clerk. Neil is our current clerk.
I am.
I'd like to nominate Neil Kamen.
I'd like to second that.
Are there any other nominations for clerk? Hearing none, I move we close the nominations and cast one ballot. All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, Neil.
Oh, I thank you very much.
I didn't hear anybody, I heard all ayes, that's why I didn't ask for opposed. Addison Northwest Supervisory Union delegates, we have 4, correct, Gloria? The chair is always automatic, and Lori, if she was gonna continue being the chair of the SU board, needs to be a voting member. Do you want to continue? Okay, so I guess we're looking for 2 others. You can self-nominate too.
I'm willing to do it.
I would be interested in serving.
Any other people interested? So
So did that cover us? Yeah, that gives us the 4.
that gives
right?
us 4.
Yeah.
So all in,
Do we need to remove nominations?
Need a motion.
yeah.
So I'd like to move that we keep Lori on there, have Jeff Glassberg represent, and have Chris Kuzma represent us.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passed. So it's myself as chair, Lori, Jeff, and Chris. Our Hannaford Center delegate currently is Kurt. I'd like to open up the floor for nominations.
I'd like to nominate Kurt.
Second that.
Are there any other nominations? Kurt, are you willing to serve?
Of course.
Hearing no other nominations, all those in favor of Kurt for our Hannaford Career Center delegate, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The date and time of our regular meeting. We currently meet on the second Monday of the month at 6 p.m. here in the library. I'd like to open the floor for a motion to set the date and time.
I move that we keep it the same.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any other discussion? All those in favor of keeping the same date and time?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Our newspaper of record is currently the Addison Independent. I need a motion for the newspaper of record.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the Addison Independent? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Committee assignments, because Tom is not here, I'd like to hold off on policy, and we don't have negotiations anytime soon, so I think we can hold off on that. I would like to revisit, while we were doing the bond meetings, we kind of had an informal facilities committee, if I remember. I believe that was Kurt and Chris, and was it you, Neil?
I expressed interest in doing that. It didn't formally come together because the bond itself didn't formally come together.
Right, well, given the fact that we still have some urgent needs that
Yeah.
need to be taken care of, I think it would be wise if we set a facilities committee of 2 or 3 people who could work with the administration and to set some priorities and goals. Are there people willing to serve on a facilities committee?
Yes. I would be
Yeah.
interested.
Jeff,
I would as
Kurt,
well.
and Neil?
I have to say, Jeff probably has the best skills because he's done so many development type projects, so.
Well, I'd take umbrage to that.
No. I mean, what different kinds of development projects. You construct them from scratch. He rebuilds the old ones. The reason I bring that up is, I mean, we don't need too many cooks in the kitchen. And I'm happy to do that, but someone with better skills, that's fine too.
So who are we looking at? I would limit it, I would think we would want to limit it to 3, because if we go with 4, 3, or more, then we have to tread really carefully,
Then it's
because
a
then
board
we have a
meeting.
quorum,
Yeah.
and if you stray from your committee assignment, even an iota, you know, it can cause all kinds of problems. So I would say we would want no more than 3. Jeff and Kurt, and is there a third?
Neil?
Yeah, I'd like to do that. I would. You got on the district thing.
So can I have a motion?
I wasn't interested.
Can I have a motion for a facilities committee to include Jeff Glassberg, Kurt Hagus, and Neil Common?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in
Trying.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Looking for a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from February 11th.
So moved. Speaking of opportunity there.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Just want to back up. I'm not sure who is responsible for this at each location, central office and high school, but if we could get the board web pages on both websites updated to reflect the new board organization, that would be great. And let's not forget Tommy Lee. I saw he wasn't on there today.
Yeah, I tried to add him the other day, and our website was giving me problems, so.
Thank you. Gentlemen, do we have an educational presentation tonight? Okay.
No, that's just under my
No, I would
regular report.
principal's report.
Okay. Any public communication tonight? Carol?
I'm really disappointed with the bond vote, and I would still like to see our students and our school have a track and everything that was proposed in the auditorium. So I'd like to ask you guys to continue to pursue the cost of the proposed track and building renovation through downsizing, administration, and other inside available funds. School budgets are in good shape with significant fund balances. FY 10, 11, 12, 13 came in with some good surpluses. It's not a new idea because the challenges for change in 2010 that came from the Department of Ed and our commissioner, the number one was that they were wanting schools to downsize administration And the only thing that our school did was to RIF a math teacher. And so we have 550 students now enrolled. The administration hasn't decreased. I looked for the schedule, the payment. We need $320,000. And I think we could get there if somehow we could create a committee with a group of business leaders to come through the pages of the current proposals to find the savings. Maybe the booster clubs could take some items to fundraise for. Current administration have resigned, and it would be a good time to evaluate their needs. Maybe to give responsibilities back to the local school, for instance, a curriculum position. And I didn't look into it, maybe special ed. I don't know if that's mandated by law to be at the supervisory union level or not. But it's something that we can look into, because as we downsize those within the building, we don't want to hit our kids first, and we want them to have the schools that they can most benefit from. And I come from Arizona. Supervisory unions were over thousands of children. Their districts were big, and I know that Montpelier has been talking about that, making the supervisory unions bigger. But until then, I struggle that our children lose when we pay so much for administration within our small district. Our district is comparable to the supervisory union, Addison Central Supervisory Union, and they have more schools and they have more students there. Work with significant surplus trends. FY 10, 11, 12, 13 averaged 450,000 in surpluses. And it would really be nice if a group could be established, including, a real community group, and to discuss these options.
Thank you.
We are going to be talking about the status of the bond proposal. We'll take your comments into consideration when we have that discussion. Are there any other public comment tonight? Hi, Jay.
Ed might be talking about this too, but the firefighting program at Mount Avery, you're going to bring that up?
We're going to roll that out.
Okay, all right.
Thanks, Jay.
Yep.
Any other public? Town meeting day reflections. Does anybody have anything they want to speak about regarding town meeting day reflections? That moves us right along to the status of the bond proposal. So as we all know, the last question, the last vote failed. And unfortunately, because of a death in the family, I missed the annual meeting, so I don't know what you folks discussed that night. If somebody could give some highlights.
Well, I don't think, we didn't get too very far down the road of discussing it, Don. I argued to take sort of a reserved approach in that we kind of have missed the boat for construction season this year. We couldn't get something out in time to buy a bond this spring. And frankly, I think the people would be uneasy seeing us come out so quickly with something, even whatever it might be. I think the timing wouldn't be necessarily right. That was what I thought, but I think that was the theme of the discussion as well.
I'd second that.
Was there any discussion about what we do with the very critical need of the roof in the meantime? No, apparently not.
No, I mean, it was, It was discussed, but, we kind of, I think what was mentioned was that at some point or another, we said we were going to need to put stuff in budget, and we may need to put stuff in budget, or we may need to go looking across the budgets, or at least the district, to find, some roof repair money. And I'm not sure that that's really feasible option. You can't borrow from Peter to pay Paul, and,
Yeah.
pull from one school to the other. Tom not being here,
Right,
he
yeah.
might have some guidance as to how to come up with the first 400K we'd need to hit the roofs.
Given the fact that Tom and Kathy aren't here tonight, and the fact that we just formed the facilities committee, and we heard Carol's comments, which I think we should look into the feasibility of incorporating some of those into this. I would suggest and I believe Kathy was asking for us to set a special meeting so that we can do that. So did Kathy have any dates in mind?
The only date she wasn't going to be available was the 20th of March. Plus, we have the SU the 27th.
Now, what would is there the compelling need being to deal with the roof, right?
I think that, and also to set some goals for how are we going to fund these things that we need. The kitchen upgrade.
Yeah.
I still think that, I know that some people don't agree with me, but I consider the track and the field a critical need. So I think we need to set some priorities, see where we can trim, and we also need to make some decisions. We've got the music teachers telling us that it's not safe to be on that stage. Well, if it's not safe to be on that stage, then maybe we need to take the stage out of service until such time as we can make it safe.
Well, that actually does remind me that, didn't you mention the annual meeting that the fire marshal was coming in to have a look at the facility?
Right, we had an engineer from the, building and grounds engineer from the state of Vermont come in to do air testing. The fire marshal
All right.
hasn't been in. They found the air in the auditorium to be unpleasant, but not a health problem. He just says stale, doesn't move. It hangs there for a long time. And of course, he didn't measure it with a auditorium
A full house.
full of people.
Okay, yeah, I remember we discussed that, yeah.
And we failed the CO2 test in the kitchen. So it was some preliminary air testing. We haven't had the fire marshal in. The other inspection as far as kitchen safety has not taken place. We're expecting it at any time. She was put on notice like 3 weeks ago.
What does it mean CO2, we failed whatever test? Does that mean
Well,
we're not removing enough air?
Right. And that we assume that's because we're not moving enough air. I mean, he just came in with the box and did the tests. And he told Mr. Worley that we had too much CO2 in the kitchen, but not in the dining room, so.
In regards to the kitchen safety inspection, are you talking about their twice-a-year health inspection?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's not going to address the fact that there's a void under the floor and...
It didn't last time.
Right, 'cause-
But I think they've been generous the last couple of years because we've been telling them that we're really looking at a bond issue and that we really are hoping to get a new kitchen. And so they've been pretty polite about that. I know that definitely they've been way too polite on the hood and how that's just not adequate for, obviously, if we got too much CO2 in there, the hood's not drying off
Not
enough.
doing what it's supposed to do.
The floor on the walk-in will be called on. And yeah.
Gloria, how much time do you need to warn a meeting, a special meeting?
At least a week.
So we're looking at a minimum of the 19th or the 21st?
We have board meetings the Monday and Thursdays, so just,
So I've got the board meeting schedule here.
yeah. The 18th, is that the Monday?
Yes.
So that's Vergennes Elementary, and then the 21st is Addison.
Addison, yes.
And then the 27th would be SU.
Yes.
So the 25th or the 26th?
I would avoid the 26th, only because it's the first day of Passover, and we want to, I would like, as a board, to try to be respectful of anybody who wants to attend, not having to make judgment calls of, well, do I go to the school meeting or do I go to my religious service? So,
How about February or April 2?
do you have a problem with Monday, March 25th?
Works for me.
How's everybody feel about that?
March 25th.
Can you do Monday, March 25th? Neil?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
What is this exactly for, sorry?
This will be a special meeting to discuss the facility needs and the bond proposal.
Open to the public.
Yeah, there'll be a public meeting,
So we'll just talk about that, not other things.
and that gives you plenty of time to warn it. It
Yes.
gives Kathy and whoever plenty of time to get materials ready.
What time?
Um,
6 o'clock?
You want to stick with our 6 o'clock time, or how early can you be here, Neil?
I could actually pull off 5:30, which may be helpful, but you can't. I know your
Well-
schedule is tight for getting out of Essex, so.
Sometimes.
I can do 6.
6 is good.
It'd be preferable to be able to get out by 7:30, but.
Okay, we probably ought to have a motion then for a special meeting on March 25th at 6 PM here in the library.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Yeah,
Could I
question.
just ask what the relationship of that would be to the facilities committee that we talked about? Is there time for the facilities committee to meet before the 25th? What I'd be particularly interested in doing is reviewing materials that were prepared as part of the run-up to the prior proposals, to understand the genesis of that, and to try to do some of the homework to be able to present material at that special board meeting, so that we have the benefit of some homework done, if you will, in terms of.
I think that's an awesome idea, and if the three of you want to get together and do that before the
Okay.
25th?
Does that have to be warned?
My concern there is that I don't have infinite number of free evenings, and that one just snapped up
Yep.
one of the very few that I had.
We'll try to figure something out.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
sounds
it's
like
just-
we
I
can.
mean, I have a whole bunch of stuff that I could kind of take you through if you wanted to see it, that I can share with you. And
Does that answer?
Not this week.
We'll figure it out, I
Yeah.
guess, after.
I can meet on the 18th of the.
that's sort of what I thought this meeting on the 25th would be. You know, sort of that would be a focused work session where the whole board could weigh in on what we think, but it would also give us some direction to know what to go forward and work on.
Okay. Anything else on the bond proposal or special meeting before we move forward? Casey, you're up.
All right. Today, the math team had a meet here. I think it was the first home meet in a while. Sounds like it was a lot of work. I wasn't able to attend. But they placed 6th out of 11, which wasn't quite as good as we had done at the last meet. But we're hoping to pull ahead in the last and final meet of the season, which is in a few weeks, I believe. I'm not sure the exact date. Also, this week we have parent-teacher conferences. Just more of an education thing, but I like to go. And then also on the 23rd, the student council is going to be having a bottle drive to raise money for our scholarships that we're going to be having to pay for. There are $200 scholarships. One is given to a male and the other is given to a female. They're both $200. And so collect your bottles.
So do you come to our house, or do we bring them?
We will be doing routes.
Yeah.
And we will also be stationed at the Redemption Center. So we'll have people all over.
Tommy Lee, you know where I live.
Yes.
Yeah. And prom is May 11th. The Alpaca Farm. At the Champlain Valley Alpaca Farm in Bridport.
This past week, the National Honor Society went around to underclassmen morning meetings and discussed with them what our organization is about, kind of, put some interest out there and encourage them to start applying. This Thursday at 7 o'clock, I believe, is the high school band and chorus concert in the auditorium. And spring sports start next Monday. That's baseball, softball, soccer, and lacrosse.
And we saved the best for last.
Yeah.
And that is a huge congratulations to our boys basketball team for going undefeated 24-0 and winning the state championship.
Nice.
Quite a game.
And
That's
that's
all I
all we
got.
have.
Excellent, thank you so much.
Who's up?
Start, I guess. I see Peter Manine out here. I'd like to remind everybody that we went through the dance championships, the wrestling championships, and the cheerleading championships on consecutive weekends, Peter.
That was 3 weekends in a row.
And that's quite a feat because we're bringing thousands of people per weekend into this community, and it's a real economically viable activity that we do. And Peter runs a great ship. The VPA really likes everything that we do here. They like our facilities. They like the organization. They all went well, except for Mount Anthony winning their, 25th straight state championship in wrestling. And we don't like that.
But they didn't win as many as they should.
Right. They were one short of last year. Jay mentioned earlier that.
Do you think the facility had anything to do with the fact that we could attract those events?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, without the facility that we have, we wouldn't be able to host them.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Two gyms specifically and parking?
Yeah, I mean, 2 gyms, I mean, parking, frankly, we need more. You know, and I mean, we can't even hold our own community when we have, basketball games, let alone, these state ones without taking off everybody in Shaw's and Navashans and that type of stuff, because that's where all the overflow goes. And, that's kind of part of it, because ultimately a lot of those places are getting, business. I can tell you Subway's not upset with us in any way. But yeah, the big gym is the obvious big attraction because it's new, so it's still relatively, all things considered, as much traffic goes through there, clean, bright, with the new lights. It's one of the biggest in the state, so we can hold, a substantial crowd in there. And then, like I said, having the 2, we're able to meet the needs that they have in terms of a warm-up practice area before they get down, and actually, compete in regards to the dance and the cheerleading, so.
So I sat through a full day of the wrestling meet because I was interested in how you handled the athletes. I mean, were they given other places that they could be during the meet, or?
They pretty much all hang out down in the
stands,
gym or in line at the concession stand.
Okay.
I mean, they don't eat for a week.
Yeah, I know.
They don't go too far from the concession stand.
Yeah.
You'll have your occasional, walkers, that do a tour every once in a while, walk around the building and kind of, herd everybody back down into the area, because you'll have a few that stray. But,
okay. The reason I was interested, because I've been the meet director for the state swim meet before, and we used to use the Dartmouth facility, and the swimmers were not allowed in the natatorium where the competition was going on, so they actually had to be somewhere else.
Yeah,
so
we do that for cheerleading. They're not allowed in the big gym because mainly there's not enough seating.
There's not enough space, right?
And so we have the big screen in the auditorium, and they stream it live on NSN, so we broadcast it in there and there while the competition's going on.
Yeah, good. And I purposely sat with the Milton group just to make sure that they were happy with the Vergennes fans. So, and they were very happy. They thought it was a great meet. So, congratulations.
Does our school get any, do we get paid? Do we get a rent? Do we get something for the use of that facility? I know it's great for the community, but does money come to the school?
We don't get, I mean, they pay, for Saturday, obviously we have to have custodial staff, so they pay those bills, I get those hours, from those, and then submit that in, and they reimburse us for that type of thing. They don't pay us for the facility. It's our job to try and do what we can, to raise revenue. We have, we have the boys basketball, boys soccer, girls soccer, the sophomore class selling the flowers. The wrestling had their thing, through it. So I'm not sure exactly what they know the.
That's fine. I was just curious if there was some money that comes in that we could actually divert over to fix the.
Biggest money comes in.
Yeah.
Boosters, through everything after paying the bills and everything, it was about $9,000 is what they grossed in those 3 weeks, which is going to allow me to purchase things that we wouldn't normally get to purchase with the, through the budget.
Yeah, and like it's already been commented, if you think concessions at a basketball game has food, you should go to a wrestling game.
Really? Yeah.
They have food. They have a full course, 9-course meal. You can buy. So it's great.
Okay, Ed.
Okay.
Continue, please.
Sorry.
So that was well worth it. Jay was mentioning earlier, we are entering into, and Tom asked me to label it as a pilot agreement with Mount Anthony. I got them on the head.
Get them off your mind.
Mount Abraham. And Andy over there, the principal, stemming from a conversation we had a number of years ago about the necessity to get credit recovery in place for young men, especially sophomores, so that they can get the 10 credits to go to Hannaford. Out of that, Andy's brainstorm has been a fire academy, a firefighting academy, in which, of course, they got an A-B schedule. They would have a firefighting course one day for double block, and then the next day would be English and math double block. And we have one student for sure who has expressed interest, and we're working on, the problem is that you have to have a waiver of liability for him to drive over every day. It's something we don't take lightly, something we don't often offer even our Hannaford students. So we're understandably nervous. Andy's looking into Actor, but Actor doesn't run buses in the middle of the day. So if it's a morning program, we've got to figure out some way to get people back and forth in a timely manner. But it's no cost to our students. And as we start looking at school choice, it's probably going to be less and less of an issue as time goes on. So anyway, Tom wanted me to advise that we are entering into this pilot, see how it goes. We do have a lot of fire cadets here. We do have a lot of kids who are interested in becoming a fire cadet. And so this would be one pathway to become one and get your licensure and still get valuable academic, preparation in the math and the English. So also, yes, sorry.
I've heard you say school choice a couple times. What's the definition when you say that word?
Well, it depends. What we're looking at, Carol, is the proposal right now, the early draft of the Flexible Pathways Initiative, and I'm not sure I even have this. It's in addition to Section 1, 16 VSA, Chapter 23, the regular school quality standards kind of language, and what they're proposing. Well, what's going into effect this next year is that any kid at our high school, up until a certain number of them, can go to any high school in the state of Vermont.
What's that number?
It's 10 going and 30 coming.
Yes.
We have 10 that we can offer to go anywhere, and that's not just Middlebury. It could be if a kid really had an uncle in Montpelier and wanted to make use of the Montpelier program for some reason. I don't know what it would be, except they're a good school. They would have that opportunity. Problem right now is that there's no financial incentive for us to accept kids because the money doesn't follow the kid. So if we accepted 30 students because we're a really nifty school, we would, and we sent out 10, we would have a balance of a negative balance of whatever the tuition is for 20 kids. So it doesn't make a lot of sense in some ways, but in the other ways, it's the new reality. And all the high school principals are getting together their waivers for March 15th to see who's interested in going where. We have, right now, Mount Abraham has 3 kids who are interested in coming to Vergennes and 1 that's interested in going to Middlebury. And the 3 that are coming our way are all kids who are interested in Walden.
Some other applications that we received.
Right, and they're the applications that we received. And some of that, I mean, at those numbers, the old school choice between us and Mount Abraham and Middlebury really hasn't changed much. But it could, because we have another person who's in our catchment area who, I believe, wants to go to CVU. And so that would be a first for us, sending somebody to CVU on basically our dime.
We have someone interested in going to South Burlington also.
In South Burlington. And, and the principal of South Burlington basically markets South Burlington to all the satellite communities to begin with. So it's kind of an exciting and frightening
I think it's
spectacle.
frightening,
Yeah, and that's why I kept mentioning during the bond issue, one of the reasons I thought the bond was a good idea, besides the obvious, like I like to stay dry, is that I thought it would make Vergennes Union High School a more attractive venue, so that we would have a tendency not to lose students and maybe gain students. And that was a point I tried to make, and I'm not sure how well understood it was, but that's the reality. And what I was going to talk about next is the early draft of the Flexible Pathways Initiative, which actually technically isn't school choice. But this was in this is on our website, and it is a initiative. It's out of committee. It's in the Senate. I think it's going to whatever the Vermont edition of Ways and Means is. And it basically calls for personal learning plans for every student enrolled in public schools, which lead to applied or work-based opportunities, including career and technical education and internships, virtual learning and blended learning. Blended learning is when it's half live and half virtual, or any combination thereof. Dual enrollment opportunities, and the colleges have come a long way, and now they're saying that they're willing to embed teachers at the high schools instead of insisting on high school students going to the campuses. Mount Abraham has a UVM biology class that's being taught this semester at Mount Abraham by a UVM approved teacher.
Really?
And so that's a first, and they're embedding in dual enrollment. You're allowed, students are allowed 2 classes junior, senior year in dual enrollment, and they'll get both high school credit and college credit for those.
Does the cost of that get picked up from both?
Well, when you really look at the bill and you get into page, I think 18 out of 21, what you realize is that for 2 years, the state's going to carry us out of a grant, and after that, all these things have to be locally funded. If CC, for instance, if UVM comes in and it's going to satellite teach in our school, the funding mechanism is that we would have to pay them 87% of CCV tuition. All right, which is basically the same number that Hannaford uses to figure out their, the percentage that we pay for them. But the interesting part is if we qualify a teacher, for instance, if Nancy Ambrose is qualified by UVM to become an adjunct and teaches here, it's only 25% of the CCV tuition. So there's an incentive for our teachers to get college, it's not a certification, approval.
Yeah, adjunct status.
Adjunct
status. Is that what it
status
need
of
to be,
some
is an
kind.
adjunct status, like you'd be a member of the faculty of the college, whatever it is?
Right, and so, and so that's a new ballgame entirely.
That would be a good ballgame.
Yeah.
Because you're picking on Nancy, but she'd be great to do that.
Yeah, sorry. That's the kind of thing we're looking at.
Was that
She's taught them over there how to teach.
I think I meant okay. No.
My 3 kids have to go to college.
We We've been having this talk for a while.
That's a neat opportunity.
The other proposal is early college program for seniors, in which you get, it's not really dual enrollment. What it is you get a year of college under your belt, and the high school has to accept it as your senior year. It's much like the VAST program is now through VTC, but they wanted to open it up to all state-run college institutions and any private ones that want to. So if a student gets accepted, it's not any student, but if a student gets accepted after their junior year into UVM, they can finish their senior year basically by doing their freshman year at UVM. And that funding mechanism is just so confusing that I can't even tell you about it.
That would be a really rare student that would have been, right?
No.
I mean,
It'd be less rare now.
Very, it's pretty typical.
Yeah, we've had a number of VAST
students are ready
students.
to apply to college at their junior year.
Yeah, I got 12 credits of college credit at UVM my
Yeah.
senior year.
Yeah.
I went to one class at South Burlington and graduated with my class. I mean, it's not unheard of. It's
Cool. All right.
Yeah, it is. All you have to do is have a motivated student. So.
We've had a number in VAST through
Yeah.
VTC, a number of kids, good kids, really strong students.
I'd love to see it be the norm, but I know that a lot of people disagree.
Well, they're voting on it soon.
Yeah.
So the Senate votes first, then the legislature. They're also calling to adapt the high school completion program to these ends to become more of a help in getting kids their degree, their diploma by alternate means, and an increased emphasis on career development and planning for post-secondary education. The biggest change immediately that would hit us is that the legislation calls for every student in grades 7 through 12 to have a personalized learning plan in place by the end of October 2014. And that's a monumental undertaking.
At the secondary level, or all the way across?
7 through 12, and then K through 6. I'm not sure they didn't put a timetable on that, but they want K through 12 personalized learning plans. And the interesting part is if you don't put dual enrollment or virtual learning or early college into the personalized learning plan, it can't get done. If it's not in your plan, you can't do it.
One of the reasons, this is going to sound completely tangential, but it's not. One of the reasons I left high school in France is because of the requirement to select a pathway and stick to it. You know, whether it was a STEM or whether it was a language, I had to go in there early and stick through it. And that was the pathway, and it set forth your options for college and so forth. And it seems like this bill would ask a lot of some pretty young people in terms of the decision-making they might need to make up front.
Yeah, I think,
You know?
this is how I look at it, Neil, honestly. I think what's going to happen is that, you get a kid who's like saying, all 7th and 8th graders think they're going to college. Almost, right? A really high percentage. And let's say they get into their sophomore year and they say, you know what? I just saw Steve Sickles, last year's graduate, who's an apprentice plumber pulling down good money already, a couple months out of high school. And, I think I want to do that. Well, at that point, you change your PLP.
Yeah.
That's all you do. You go to your advisor, you go to your guidance counselor or your school counselor, and you sit down with the parents and say, okay, I'm going to change. I want to take this at Hannaford. What do you think? Everybody goes, yeah. And that's the flexible pathway part of it.
Gotcha.
All right, you don't have to stay in that pathway like a European program. So I just wanted to bring it up to let people know that that's on the horizon. And the only other thing I had to say was that, no, I'll do that next time. And to Carol, special education services are mandated to come through the central office now. Just so, that's new within the last year or two.
It balances out the funding across the schools, eases the burden.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
The date, the or the application date for next year's school choice was March 1st, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
So we know what next year looks like as far as
Right.
school choice is concerned.
Right. We're all just putting on spreadsheets and sharing them with each other to see how they match up.
It hasn't been announced yet.
We haven't
March,
announced
April
it.
1st.
We're
The
not supposed to.
applications were due
April
1st,
on
so
March
they're in the
1st.
process.
The principals are going to see it March 15th, so we can scramble for April 1st.
So, but you already told us what the numbers are. I think I just heard you say how many kids are
Those are
going in which direction.
what you approved as the potential.
No, but I heard you say, well, we got 3 that want to come from Mount Abe, we got 1 that wants to go to CVU, 1 that's thinking about South Burlington also. Right? Isn't that what I heard you say?
He's talking to you.
Oh, yes.
That's what I heard you say, right?
Yeah, no, I was looking at her
Yeah,
because
but
she
it
knows
doesn't
more than
sound
I
like,
do.
it doesn't sound like a big hit
Yeah,
one way or
no,
another.
it's not a big hit yet.
Just
We
a
had-
clarification, when that student goes to CVU or CVU, for example, I mean, we don't lose that FTE, or do we lose that FTE? We lose that FTE.
Well,
No, money
no,
isn't.
we pay for them, though.
We keep the FTE, but we pay for it, even though they're
We keep
over
the
there.
average daily membership, but we pay for the kid.
But we are getting 3 potentially. so.
Right.
All right.
And so the reason I was looking at Gloria is she seems to have more information than I do.
Well, I
Regarding-
got all the applications,
Gotcha.
so, and we had already 3 that were already grandfathered into the school choice that have not graduated yet. So we had those 3, so that left 7 spots open, and we have filled those 7 spots to make the 10, so. And it's CVU, it's some to Middlebury, South Burlington. And we've received a couple that, we had interesting situation of a couple of CVU kids that are currently at CVU, but in July will be moving to Ferrisburg, but want to continue at CVU. So there was
That's an interesting outcome of school choice right there.
Yes, it was. We had a very lengthy phone conversation with a couple of the state people.
Wow.
So,
And it's also killing member to member.
yeah.
Yeah?
Member to members going out the board, off the board because, for instance, and I'm not appreciative of the way Middlebury did it, but right now, any kid that's playing hockey at Middlebury, if we had younger kids that wanted to, they'd probably have to do school choice to be able to do that because, member to member is a thing of the past. So.
Grandfathered, right? Kids are
The
grandfathered.
kids are grandfathered if they're in it right now, right?
I'm a little confused. So you said the money doesn't follow the kid,
Right.
but you said that you're going to have to pay for the kid.
No, the money, I'm sorry, I did misspeak. There's 2 things. In school choice, the money follows the kid.
The money does
The
follow
money
the kid.
does not.
No.
No, the money does not follow the kid because
Right.
but that means that we pay for the kid who's going to CVU.
Then the money follows him.
No.
No, because CVU's not going to see
The revenue.
the revenue for having that student.
We don't pay, it still counts. The one who goes to CVU would still be on our.
Still be our ADM.
Still our ADM.
So Carol, the funding for that child's education stays here. But
So actually
the
that
cost,
benefits us.
the
That
cost for
benefits
that
us.
child's education goes to CVU.
Unless they're special ed, then we
Yeah.
have to cover any of their
Yeah.
special ed costs.
And that
Special
is
ed.
a train
Didn't-
wreck in the making,
So
right
10
there.
kids come
You
here.
did.
That's
And
very
just so you know,
concerning.
this is not something that's static. It's being discussed in the legislature, that the money should follow the student. But that's even scarier, because if you lose 30 students,
You
you
lose.
lose 30 FTEs of funding.
And that, I think, is going to get a lot of pushback.
You lose
in
30
committees.
students. The money doesn't follow.
Today.
Right.
Today.
But there's a bill in the legislature
Yes,
today
yes.
saying that the money should follow the student, including if they go to college for a year. That year of college should be paid for by public funding. So it's not a static relationship, it's changing. And the funding, I mean, it's like having a population shrink, as the population shrinks, the resources have to be reallocated, so.
Kurt's right, the dual enrollment practically died in the finance committee last year because they changed it to the money did follow the kid.
Right.
And so dual enrollment fell apart because we couldn't afford to pay for it. So that's what happens. It gets out of the education committee just looking like a good bill and gets to finance and other places. And it just, they tag things and change it. And so it does change. That's a good point.
Yes.
Just one last question. I picked up on a subtlety that you mentioned. You said this is in the Senate now, right? And it would have to be passed by the legislature, or has this already come through the House?
This is a Senate bill, so it hasn't gone through the House.
Okay, so
crossover.
what that means actually is that this is not moving this year. Because a Senate bill that would need to be taken up by the House would have to gone through what's called crossover, which just happened.
Did it cross over?
Crossover, I thought it crossed over.
Then the House is, so it's in the House now.
It must have escaped the Senate, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the subtlety that I picked up on. You said it's in the Senate. I mean, if it's made it across, then it'd be.
Yeah, and I don't know that because I haven't read my VPA bulletin today, but.
Okay, I'm just curious.
I'm just working on
There's some
understanding.
neat ideas in here, though.
It's really good
But
stuff.
the money stuff is just really, really scary. Back to the school choice thing, the money stuff.
I don't understand that, because you have, like Indiana last year, the whole state is school choice. So there's other states, Arizona's had school choice for I don't know how long.
And their
they've been
funding
able to
mechanisms are
work.
probably not the same as Vermont's funding mechanisms.
Yeah, maybe.
Quite conceivably, they invest more at the statewide level in public education and probably have a different balance of, free and reduced or special education. That's what puts small towns at such a big financial disadvantage. Just saying.
Was that it, Ed?
Yep, that's all I had.
Peter, you're up.
Okay, we are preparing for the middle school. We're sending a group to the the Vermont Association of Middle-Level Educators. We're sending a group of kids to to do a presentation for other middle school teachers and administrators, talking about our behavior planning process. It's a conference on bullying and student voice. We're the only students that have been invited to present. That morning, we are going to be doing an exchange with Mount Abe, and actually, as we're in the middle stages of this, but there will be a speaker here on related to drug abuse. All of Mount Abe High School will be coming over here for the presentation.
In our auditorium, right?
And then
Not in the auditorium.
Jim, not the auditorium. Although, if you want to do the air testing, that might be very good. Actually, we're meeting on the stage.
When is that?
March 29th. It will be in the high school gym.
The entire student body.
The high school student body, yes.
Theirs and ours?
Theirs and ours. We had to it'll be followed by a conversation, student-led small group conversations. And to create space for that, we're going to be moving the middle school out of the building, and we'll be going over to Mount Abe to have a somewhat similar conversation with a different presenter. So we're in the very early stages of planning the middle school piece of that. But it's an interesting opportunity, and we're combining fundings that come from the different prevention monies that are available. But a nice opportunity for the two schools to work together. March 29th.
That's creative. That's cool.
Yeah.
It originally included Middlebury, we just couldn't pull it off. We were going to do it at the college, and we just couldn't get it done.
So, that's one of the things that we're working on. We also have been participating in meeting the requirements of Green Mountain Star, which is a state-mandated and wonderfully welcome process that we earned by being on multiple, what's it called?
Double secret probation?
For
No, we're in year 2.
year 2 of corrective
School
action.
corrective action.
And we've been meeting as we've had a number of meetings as a whole school and a small leadership committee to take a look at a set of criteria that have been 100 items of best practices in schools. And we spent the first semester looking at all those items. We will be spending the rest of this semester in smaller group of staff looking at creating a plan that will focus on somewhere between 8 and 15 items that we will use in our planning in terms of best practices for improving schools. At the same time, there are some district goals that we have to address, and so there's been a meeting a couple times a month as an district staff to look at a different set of district-level goals. And again, we've gone through those, and we now will be looking at creating a plan that will belong to the high school, that the state will monitor. We also have, separate from this, have been involved, are beginning to become involved in a curriculum mapping process, which is getting a sense of, an explicit sense of what it is we're doing in each discipline, to getting that on paper, making sure that it's to build continuity within disciplines and across the school in the presentation of instruction. We are using a commercial product called Rubicon Atlas, which as a geographer I appreciate, except I'm not sure where the logic falls in those two terms. We are, there's a lot of staff training. There's a course that's being offered now that I think about 24 district staff are participating in, to understand the process of curriculum mapping and using the software that comes from Rubicon Atlas. So that will have a direct impact on instruction, and it's supporting, if we use it correctly, we'll be supporting the approaches to teaching and learning that are being advocated by the state, the new state plan proposal.
Is this from 7 to 12?
This is
Pre-K.
Pre-K 12.
Pre-K to 12.
Yes.
And it's very flexible. For instance, at the high school, we believe in, we really have invested heavily in understanding by design, backwards design. It allows us to do everything we would normally want to do anyway, so it's really slick, too.
It's providing a structure to help us do what it is we already plan on doing, and to be clear in our thinking, and to be clear in how we communicate that to one another, and to make a commitment to what it is we're going to be doing in the classroom. Conferences are this Thursday. Well, technically, conferences are this Thursday. Some have begun, and some will continue into next week. Specifically in the middle school, this will be the first student-led conference for the 7th grade classes. The first one was pretty traditional, giving the 7th grade parents a chance to meet all of the teachers. In this conference, now student-led, so it's the monitor is the crew teacher, and the conferences are pretty full. We get a remarkably high rate of participation. It hovers around 90% at middle school. The 8th graders, in the past, this would have been their 3rd student-led conference. It is still student-led, but they're presenting their capstone project. We're expecting a capstone completion for each 8th grader. There have been some very interesting student selections of the project they want to work on, and the completion of the project, their capstone presentation, should have them demonstrating the skills that will be required for high school. While it's the first year, we are still in the throes where we're expecting every 8th grader to complete one in order to move on. Because it's first year, we're monitoring the quality, and teachers are learning as much as the kids are. We must be doing the right thing. The 8th graders are saying they don't have enough time. Yet they seem to be taking the work seriously. It's the closest thing we have to a research paper, but it's calling for much more than that in terms of not necessarily a high-powered research paper, but research followed by presentation, followed by product, or including the product. So, all things that they will have to apply when they get into high school to work for the PPGRs. We have had, we were talking briefly about parking before. One other clear issue we've got when we bring so many people in is that we know there's not enough parking space because we fill all of the yard and we still couldn't get an emergency rescue vehicle in through our drive.
Did we need to get one in?
No, we haven't yet.
No, but that's, okay, so
Right.
that,
But
we didn't test that theory yet.
We have been meeting with.
I mean, this thing was packed the other night.
That's correct. That's correct. And we have been meeting, and the challenge is we have not set out the requisite signs in order to, for the police to come in and enforce what it is we need to expect. We need to have more signage. The signage has been purchased. It's not yet been installed, but apparently the signage is more critical than the lining. And we need to do a better job. We've had conversations with the VPD and looking at the regulations. They're willing to come in and ticket or tow as long as we have done what we need to do and put out a public announcement. So that, we're anticipating that will be happening shortly.
Our specific nightmare is during the musical, as the auditorium swelters, having somebody's grandmother go down and literally, we couldn't get a police cruiser in there last time.
Let alone an ambulance.
Let alone an ambulance. And we really are living on the edge that way. When we fill up the drives on big-time production nights like that, we're just asking for a real tragedy. So
It is one piece that we did not speak loudly enough about during the bond vote. Parking isn't just a luxury.
So let's say we put up this, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, I'll actually go.
Let's say we put up the signs and we start enforcing the parking zones. Where does the revenue go for those?
To the town.
To
Goes
the
only
police
to the town.
department.
Actually, it goes to the town, doesn't go to the, it doesn't go to the PD and doesn't come to us.
So it's not a revenue generator?
It's, you know, we pushed that, didn't we?
yeah, we asked.
Yeah, well, I'm looking for revenue.
Absolutely.
Think about voting for it, maybe.
Yeah, it's our contribution to the city of Vergennes.
Yeah, okay.
And
Or
their
actually, it's not our
infrastructure needs.
contribution, but,
And do we
their
know,
infrastructure needs.
do we know what our liability is if it's not, if the worst-case scenario,
the police chief thought he knew what our liability would be.
what's that?
Yeah.
Absolute liability.
Absolute liability
All right,
if an emergency vehicle could not get in here for,
But you have to have the signs up before.
So we're gonna get them up, and we've had this conversation before.
well, we had put some, there are some up there. It has been signed, it has been lined. It turns out that, I'm not sure if it's the perspective of the chief, or if the laws have changed, or if they were read differently. It's just not as thorough as it needs to be.
What about parking cones, or, those orange cones that?
That's what the chief used last time he tried to come in and help. And it worked pretty well, actually.
You can just look out the window, I mean, it's fire lane right there, it's right in the sidewalk, and you can see the cars parked there right now.
Sure. Oh, yeah, I mean, it's.
So can we set a goal to have it done by graduation?
Sure.
We have not set that goal.
Well, we can.
Are you setting that goal?
I'd like to.
Does it need, I mean, just
It's
Doesn't
not
even
our,
need- you
it's
said
not our
signs are in the
job, I'm
house, right?
saying,
I
you know,
understand the signs are here.
Yeah.
So at this stage, it's a matter of letting the ground thaw so that they can
Oh.
get the signs in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if anybody ever got one of my orange signs that said, please don't park here. And what I did after I put out all those signs all through the fire lanes and everything is, when everybody left, I went around and picked up all the orange signs. I mean, so it's
They're
like
easy
we,
to pick up when they're in a ball.
yeah, they are. But we really need to get a little bit more bite on that.
Yeah. I mean, and there was a period of time when the PD was ticketing. And I think at some point the town told them to stop. That should,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I think we should, get the signs up. Next big event, big white pieces of paper on each door. If you park there, you will be ticketed. Fair warning. You know,
Well, it
and-
would go out, and it would go into the paper before then.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what's gonna happen there. We will do what is legally required, put it in the paper, but then we're gonna have critics sitting out there saying, well, I don't
That
get
wasn't
the Addison Independent. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
we better make sure we do multiple avenues.
Well,
Absolutely.
just put, I mean, just, you have to walk in a door, and if that
Exactly.
sign stares you in the face, then you've got nothing to say. But we can't have the ambulance
Right.
not be able to get through,
Right.
to a sporting event in particular.
Sure.
I remember graduation a couple of years ago when everything was so wet. You actually had some staff out here, and I'm not sure who they were. They might have been the cadets or
We had the cadets.
something like that. We may have to, once the signage goes out and everything's legal and stuff, we might have to look at doing something like that once or twice to start training people.
Well, we have been in the situation before of trying to tap into the Shaw's parking lot, and also running shuttle buses between here and the park and ride.
But that costs money too.
It costs money. Yes.
But less money than getting sued because
Yes.
somebody can get an ambulance.
Yeah.
Christina, did you got something?
I have a request about parent-teacher conferences. There's a big conflict this Thursday with another school event, and I was just gonna suggest, if at all possible, next time they get scheduled, that maybe doesn't happen, so.
We asked the music department not to do it last year, for this year, and it happened. And I don't know
That's a
why.
reasonable request.
Yes, it's
It's
a
a reasonable
request that was asked of us last year, and we asked them.
Yeah.
It's inexplicable. I wish I could explain it.
Well, they
I
had a
think they s-
schedule
they
between
said
a
they're-
lot of other
Yeah.
events,
Yeah.
musical events that
Right.
happened in March and April, and there weren't very many options
Yeah.
for it to happen.
Yeah, they were very restricted, but still, I understand. Believe me.
Anyway, maybe you guys can all put your heads together next. Thank you.
On the other hand, if they're here anyway, they might as well stay
Good
for
point,
conferences,
yeah.
come early.
Conferences
I
take a
don't.
while, if you've got, especially if you have more than one kid, so
No.
it's tricky.
And the last item I have is that when you asked about whether we were making any money on the events, and they do pay for custodial services, was pointed out that they don't pay for paper products. And when you have 1,000 people here, there's an awful lot of paper that passes through the bathrooms, among other places, and it is something that
Probably not paying for the water nor the sewer fees either.
that's correct. Or the electricity. I mean,
Yeah.
at some point along the
Yeah.
line, there is that, but we make a lot of donations.
Mhm.
The trade-off is, if they make $9,000 and boosters are kicking it back into the school, it's the price of doing business, but.
And good publicity, because
Yeah.
the rest of the state really, really thinks that we do a nice job putting things on, and they really like the facility. So, I mean, we get a lot of good
Yeah.
publicity and goodwill out of this, too.
I ran into a teacher working in a bookstore in Chester about 2 weeks ago, and when she heard I worked at Vergennes, she commented on what she had heard about the kind of work that we're doing in this school. We picked that up in different ways. Sometimes our recognition is greater 50 miles away, or appreciation is greater 50 miles away from home than it is nearby. That's what I have.
Thank you, Did Tom and Kathy send you with anything for us? Tom and Kathy were unable to be with us tonight. Kurt, do you have anything on Hannaford tonight?
We had a culinary arts presentation last month, and one of our own, Chef Carter, is part of that program, and he shared his goals, going to school in Maine and Maritime, I guess the Maritime College, and being a chef on a cruise ship. I think that was before the cruise ship got towed back. So it's, if you want to see a kitchen, it's a beautiful kitchen. And I've been in a lot of commercial kitchens. It's a beautiful kitchen. It's a well-run program. They served us, a nice appetizer. And we talked about some of the struggles that they're having. Last month I mentioned that our technical center in Addison County is the most expensive technical center in the state, and we're trying to do some things to deal with that. Unfortunately, that means we'll probably have to cut some programs. We cut a program. We didn't cut a program, but we riffed a teacher last month that teaches green building, because there wasn't enough interest in it. There was only one student interested in signing up for it. So I anticipate that there will be more of that at the Hannaford Center, just because there seems to be two competing interests. There's issues of credit for academic studies, and there's issues with some schools having competing curriculums with the Hannaford Center. So I'm not going to be any more specific than that, but those seem to be some common problems. So some students don't sign up for something they'd be interested in because they don't want to ride the bus. Although they're really interested in the program, they don't want to ride the bus. So those are things that we're dealing with.
Thank you, Kurt. Chris used to give us our Government Relations Network representative report, and so I don't think any of us are prepared to do it tonight. However, we all recently, board members, should have gotten an email from the SBA with a nice legislative summary. So I would suggest, take a few minutes to read that through.
We just got a good rundown from that as well.
Lori?
I received an email that was forwarded from Chris to me about the Addison County Hunger Council, and they will be meeting it's from Jenna Whitson. She's a child nutrition advocate for Hunger Free Vermont, and she was inviting one of us to be on their committee, and they meet 4 times a year. I'd be happy to do that if somebody else has a burning desire. They can do it, but I am volunteering that I would do that. The first meeting is on March 18th at CSAC in Middlebury, the CSAC office that's on Exchange Street, and it's from 9:30 to 11:30. So.
Is there a motion to have Lori do this?
Well, absolutely.
Is
Would
there a
this be
second?
something new? Is there always usually a representative to that group, or?
As far as I know, I don't think there has been, so
I think it's
I'm more
something
than
new
happy
for
to do
us.
that. Are you familiar with that committee then? Are you on it?
No.
Okay. So I guess what I would do is come back at, the next meeting afterwards and just report.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All in favor of Lori joining the Addison County Hunger Council on behalf of our board, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Lori. Approval of bills and directors' orders. Need a motion.
For $391,001.55.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second that.
Any discussion? Anything interesting in there?
Nothing that I can tell.
Consequential or weird? I always ask that question, you know I do.
Yes, yes.
Any further discussion, questions, comments?
Don't forget to date it at the end.
You have to sign the name and date.
So all in favor of approving that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And as Chris just reminded, make sure you put the date behind your signature and sign every tab that needs to be signed. We have no policy matters tonight. No personnel.
Yes, we have personnel.
We do have
Spring,
personnel.
spring coaches.
Spring coaches, okay, I wasn't aware of that.
That came at a late notice.
Peter, would you like to speak to that?
Pretty self-explanatory, all the spring sports we have, all the coaches that we've had that are interested in taking on it. Some more forcefully than others, or some more forced than others.
Is there a motion to approve the spring sports coaches?
I'll move to approve the spring sports coaches.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the spring coaches?
Yeah, I'd like to know what happened to the varsity girls lacrosse program.
It's a club program, so we don't pay for the coach or
Okay.
anything, so it's not a varsity program at the moment.
Okay.
This is gonna be their second year, so I'll come in at some point in the fall and let you know how it's going and what my recommendation would be in terms of making it a varsity sport or not.
Okay.
And whether you guys are willing to give us some more money to continue moving our program forward.
Is
One
it
of
still,
the things, speaking of money for athletics, the legislative thing that you brought up, the SO4, looks like it's going to go through, and that's the one that dealing with concussions.
Oh, yeah.
So for us, it's going to affect us what they deem to be collision sports. We don't have football, we don't have hockey, but we do have wrestling and boys lacrosse, and then even for our girls lacrosse, even though it's a non-contact sport, they consider it to be a collision sport. So for every home high school event that we offer for those, we're going to be required to have a certified athletic trainer or a medical doctor on site to deal with any of the concussions, which, you know, unless we can get our good doctor to volunteer his time, which, you know, kind of begin those conversations, it's going to be not expensive, you know, roughly $35 an hour, $2,500 over the course of the year. Next year, that wasn't budgeted because we didn't know about this, and assuming it passes, which it looks like it's going to do, it goes into effect next school year. So
yep.
just give you that heads up.
S04,
I think
004?
I think that's what it is, isn't it?
That's what I think it is too, but, and I think the doctor, if it is a doctor or a medical professional, they have to have training in, I don't know if it would be neurology or, it has to
I'm
be.
not sure about that. I don't know exactly whether they just have to be an MD, so I can't be, you know, a nurse or anybody, but an actual medical doctor that would have had some sort of training,
Yeah.
whether it's related specifically to athletic, you know, issues
Yeah.
and concussions or not, but.
So does this piece of legislation specifically promulgate a rule, or is it put it on the Board of Education to develop the rules and to develop the timeline for this to come forward? Because it seems like, you know, that added expense would be something the legislature might be mindful of, you know, that school budgets have already moved.
Yeah, it's been brought up to them.
Mhm.
They have backed off, you know, some of it. At one point, it was for every high school sporting event, which you can imagine the cost. And
Wow,
at one
yeah.
point, it was for all of them, K through 12.
Is basketball collision?
They're not deeming it to be collision. They're
Wow.
deeming football, hockey, wrestling, boys and girls lacrosse.
Wow.
Girls soccer has the highest rate of concussions, and that's not in there.
Yeah.
Ludicrous.
Especially on our
It's one of
nice
those things
fern
that
field.
makes- yeah, It's more of a
Do you want to go first?
personal thing than it is a common sense thing.
Yeah, the sponsors of the bill have both had dogs in the fight. They both
Yep.
had kids with concussions, so.
All right, let's come back to the spring coaches, because we have that motion on the floor. All in favor, we had a motion and a second to approve the spring coaches. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we can, if there's anything further to be said about the concussion bill. Okay. Do we have any other action items that you're aware of, Roy? Do we have any other discussion items?
I've got something I'd like to bring up, and it may be viewed as something getting a little under the hood, but I'm not sure. I know that, Peter, your position is now posted on School Spring,
That's correct.
and it's good to get it out there that there'll be a position to fill. I think it would be worthwhile to entertain a discussion amongst the board as to sort of what your design is, whether it's going to be the exact same thing, whether there's some opportunities for change, maybe not the right word, but some opportunities to view the position in the most effective way possible. I just want to say, I don't support the idea Carol brought forward at all. Just to put that on the table, that's not where I'm going.
I'd appreciate that.
But,
Her observation also ignored the fact that we reduced the administrative staff by 30% 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when Virginia left.
I don't bring it up as a, well, do we need this position? That's not what I mean, but I think there's an opportunity to have a discussion about what we really want.
The way in which it was advertised, it was intentional that we will build the job around the qualifications of the people we find, to some extent. I mean, that's really all.
It's advertised as an administrative leadership position, without further definition.
We didn't, and so we have 23 applicants, including somebody who is a policeman who's never taught, or, you know, it's just bizarre, the kinds of things you get. But we have a few qualified applicants, I would think.
So there's a close date. What's that?
It's going to be open until filled.
Okay.
And we're going to be developing a committee as soon as we feel like we have an adequate pool of candidates to begin work on.
It's, you know, with Tom not being here, it's, you know, it's hard to have the discussion, but it feels to me like it's something where the board would at least want to have the opportunity to, you know, hear what some of the possibilities are, some of the ideas, maybe offer some ideas and possibilities that you guys might not have thought of.
I have a question. Who makes up that committee? Is it?
We haven't even started on the committee work. We're just waiting until we have a pool of candidates that's worthy of, you know, working as a committee on. We're going to be.
Have community member or
yes,
parents or I'm not.
We're going to beckon outwards for both community members and students.
Good.
So.
Well, thanks for hearing me out, but I think if that resonates across this table, it would be good to get that on, maybe on deck for next meeting. And hopefully that timeline isn't too slow for, you know, the feed in of applicants.
I don't think so. I don't think we're anywhere near where we would like to be at this point.
But the goal is to hire someone before July, right?
Yeah, to have somebody sitting in the job.
Well, that's not very long away.
I know.
That's my point about, you know, I feel like it would have been good to engage some discussion, maybe before it went out, but it's out there, so it's out there.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of the record going out yet, so, until today.
Do you have access, you don't have access to School Spring, we can send you what the job, what the description is.
I looked it up today, once I heard it was out. So.
Right. It just came as a bit of a surprise. So.
Well, do we need to review how a principal is hired or how someone is hired? Because we just agreed to a recommendation, right, as a board?
Well, that maybe, you know, if
really
they're
part of the hiring process.
If we're hiring an educator, you know, a staff person, a teacher, then that's their job. But I feel like the leadership of the program, and this is what we're hiring, is the leadership of the program, that the board certainly has, you know, something to offer.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think it would be unreasonable to have a board member on the committee, because we've done that, we did that in Addison, when I was with the Addison Central School Board. for other positions. There was a board member on there with a community member and a teacher and the principal, so.
See, I can't remember because I was sitting in Florida. I have no idea who was on the other end of the
Right.
phone, so I don't know, but
Yeah, there was someone.
Gloria said that there was a board member.
Sometimes too.
Sometimes do.
Right.
So I'm just sorry, you said it was not advertised as an assistant principal job, it was advertised as
As an administrator,
an administrator.
wanted administrator.
And I think that's where Neil's going, is as a board, we might want to chime in on whether we want to continue the co-principal
Right.
model or a principal, assistant principal model.
Makes sense, you would want to maybe decide that before you advertised.
I thought so, but I didn't realize it had gone out, so.
But that said, it's gone out
Right.
with language that's flexible, so that's
Exactly,
good. And it's
absolutely.
worthwhile to have that, you know, to begin to generate that interest.
That
I
was
don't know if you can,
very intentional.
I don't know if you can modify those school spring postings to, you know, become more specific, which might attract a certain someone that you're after, a certain skill set that
We've
you're after.
already
for the
tweaked it
program.
once, right?
So-
We tweaked it once just to clarify who they'd be working with, you know, and not for, but who they'd be working with, and I think that was an important detail that we left out. So, yeah, we can massage it as we go. You don't want to massage it too much because you'll get people in the candidate pool that won't
Right.
remember the original thrust. So, you know, we can gradually modify that if we really feel it's necessary. It's wide open now till we have, you know, like I said, 21, 22 candidates.
Then you said you have 5 or 6 that you think are viable.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Well, some of them are, it's not that they're not viable. There's such a thing in the principal search as those who apply for every principal's job you can. And when you look back through their record, you realize is that they're not really serious about maintaining a principalship for any length of time. You sort of discount those, but there's others that are really good. And as soon as we have any, you know, I'd say if we get to, BFA's got 36 applicants for their principalship. So as soon as I think once we get a decent number of in-state or local candidates, then we would move and open it up for a reading, and we'd ask the committee, we'd ask for a committee, we'd ask for a general reading. We're obviously going to kick out, Tom reserves the right to kick out like wacky applicants, you know, which sometimes happens. And
there's usually a couple of different rounds of interviews. There's the round with the committee, then there'll
Right,
be.
but we're getting, see, this part is getting ahead of the conversation that I want to have.
Right,
which is
I understand that.
Organizationally, what will allow, you know, you now to set the direction and enable that to happen, you know, and have that be efficient and smooth.
I welcome the dialogue. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Any other discussion items for tonight? I'm not aware of a need for an executive session. So I would remind everybody of the SU meeting on March 27th, especially if you're a new voting member. It's be nice to be there, although all are welcome. And our next meeting is April 8th.
And the special
Regular
meeting we just
meeting.
did?
The special meeting is the 25th at 6 p.m. If there's no further business, the meeting is adjourned at 7:28.